They were celebrating in the streets of Ohio this week. Union workers sent a loud and clear message to Republican Governor John Kasich and to the rest of the country by defeating a state law that stripped collective bargaining rights from government workers. Here to celebrate a bit and talk about the next battleground for workers' rights is Secretary-Treasurer for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees and my frat brother, Lee Saunders. Lee?
Good seeing you, man.
Likewise, a huge victory in Ohio. And we have seen Republican governors in Ohio, in Wisconsin, try to go after the whole issue of collective bargaining rights. What put this over the top by a huge percentage where Ohio folks said, you know what, I'm sorry, Governor, you went too far?
Well, it was a huge victory, make no mistake about it. But let's really put this in perspective. You look at a year ago in Ohio when we had the new November 2010 elections. We lost the governor's seat. We lost every single statewide election. We lost the state legislature, all to conservative Republicans who wanted to steal our voices away from us. When they came out and they said they wanted to take collective bargaining away and limit our ability to represent our workers, the communities in Ohio, the trade union movement stood up and said that can't happen. So we formed coalitions, we formed alliances, we formed partnerships all over the state. In the Buckeye State, those citizens spoke. Now, it's interesting to say this. In Ohio last Tuesday, we had more no votes on issue 2, which again permits us to bargaining for public sector workers. We had more no votes than the governor received in his election campaign. That's making a very, very strong statement across Ohio, but it also makes a very, very strong statement across the nation.
Now, the governors are saying one of the reasons they wanted to do this is because union demands were greatly impacting state budgets, so therefore they needed to close these deficits. Union leaders said that's just nonsense.
It was nonsense. If you looked at what Scott Walker said in Wisconsin, when we agree to concessions, and we agree to concessions when we know that a state or local government is experiencing difficulty, but we will not be used as a scapegoat. But when we agreed to all of the concessions that he recommended, he still said that he wanted to come after collective bargaining. So it had nothing to do with the budget. It's a power play, pure and simple, and they want to take us on, and that's why we mobilize those communities in Wisconsin, we mobilize those communities in Ohio, and we're going to continue aggressively to mobilize.
What do you believe that these efforts by them, as some have said, woke up a sleeping giant, and that so here we are a year out of the presidential election, congressional elections, that unions are now energized to a greater extent than they were, frankly, in 2008 or 2006. How do you see these elections playing out for next year?
Well, I think that it did wake up a sleeping giant. I think not only within the labor movement, where we are working more closely together like never before, both private and public sector unions, but we're also working with our community partners, with the faith-based community, with the civil rights community, with students, with retirees, with the progressive community. Those 99% of this country who are sick and tired of that 1% getting more and more power and gaining more and more wealth, they are speaking up like never before. Look at what's happening with the Occupy Wall Street movement. All of this is coming together. And I think that if we are smart and if we continue to mobilize aggressively, next year we will make a very, very strong statement.
Unions have spent a lot of focus and time and money on these national elections. Did they learn in Ohio and Wisconsin that what happens on the state level also matters, that who you elect to state houses and governor's mansions is frankly sometimes more important than who is put in the Oval Office?
Well, for our union, AFSCME, it's extremely important that we elect friends in the governor's house and the state legislatures. That's where our neighborhood is. That's where our business is. That's where we work. That's where our members reside. But just as importantly, we've got to make a transition. We've got to continue the pressure in Ohio and across this country and battle those state legislators and those governors who want to take away our voices, who want to steal our rights. We've got to continue to do that in 2012, but we've also got to be engaged in the national elections.
You spoke of pressure. Union leaders have been highly critical at times of President Barack Obama not doing enough to advance their efforts. And folks decided that, look, we're not going to necessarily spend money giving to Democrats. We're going to create our own infrastructure to drive the vote. How do you see that playing out over the next 12 months?
Well, number one, we think that the president's efforts to create jobs in this country with his American Jobs Act to rebuild the economy is a very positive step, and we support that 100%. We're behind him 100% because those are the number one issues in this country: rebuilding the economy and creating jobs for Americans. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to build a war chest to support those who support us and support the creation of jobs, who support rebuilding this economy, so working families have a fair chance to achieve the American dream and to move into the middle class.
All right, Lee, thanks so much.